Welcome to Reformed Thinking. So I want you to just picture this for a second. Imagine walking maybe 70 miles through a totally lawless pastoral frontier.
Yeah, just dust everywhere.
Right. The sun is just beating down on you, the dust is thick, and you are completely exhausted.
Oh, absolutely.
And the thing is, you are not out there looking for a fight. You are just trying to check on your family.
Which is a normal thing to do, you know?
Yeah. But as you finally spot them way off in the distance, you realize the people you love, like the people you literally share blood with, have spent the last 3 days digging your grave.
Wow. That is just a horrific realization.
It really is. And that is the reality we are looking at today. We're doing a deep dive, taking this massive stack of historical, archaeological, and theological sources, and we are just pulling apart this chilling, visceral scene from Genesis 37.
Right, the betrayal of Joseph.
Spot on. It is the betrayal of Joseph by his own brothers. We are looking at how secret envy ferments into violence and, what happens when human malice collides with the divine sovereignty.
And the theological tension here is just stark. I mean, it sets the stage for everything that follows in the biblical narrative.
It really does.
This text strips away any illusions we might have about human goodness. It exposes the total depravity of the human heart in a very visceral way.
Yeah, it doesn't hold back.
Not at all. You have 10 men raised in the covenant family, plotting in the dark, acting on their most vile impulses.
Right.
But right alongside that suffocating darkness, you have the invincible sovereign decree of God. While the brothers conspire to destroy life, God is orchestrating the preservation of a whole nation.
Because human rebellion cannot derail divine promises.
No, it cannot.
So we're going to take our time today. We really want to unpack the weight of this material without rushing through it.
Yeah, we really need to sit with the text.
I agree. And I want to start by just getting the dirt under our fingernails, so to speak. Let us visualize the geography and the physical toll of what is happening here.
The physical reality is so crucial.
It is. We are in the patriarchal era, roughly 1898 BC. Joseph starts his trek in the valley of Hebron. He is sent by his father Jacob to check on the brothers who are out pasturing the flocks.
Right.
So he walks to Shechem, and that alone is about 50 miles.
50 miles on foot in that terrain.
Yeah, it is grueling. And when he gets to Shechem, they are not even there.
No, they moved on.
Right, a man finds him wandering in the fields and tells him the brothers moved on to Dothan. So Joseph walks another 15 or 20 miles north.
Which is just a massive trek.
It really is. He is seeking their welfare. He comes offering peace.
And we have to look at the socio-political reality of that specific geography to understand the context.
Oh, absolutely. Set the scene for us.
Well, this is a lawless frontier. There is no local magistrate.
No police force.
Right. No standing army or police to keep the peace. Out there in the pasture lands, the only rule of law is the strength of your clan.
It's the Wild West, basically.
It really is. Disputes are handled internally, and they are usually handled brutally. I mean, remember, these are the same brothers, specifically Simeon and Levi, who previously slaughtered the entire male population of Shechem.
Oh, man. Yeah. Over the assault of their sister Dinah.
Yes. So Jacob is terrified of the surrounding nations taking revenge, which is likely why he sends Joseph to check on them in the first place.
He knows what his older sons are capable of.
He knows they are violent men. Now, drop the specific catalyst for their hatred into that volatile environment.
The coat.
Yes, the Ketonet Passim.
Okay, right. The famous coat of many colors. But our sources suggest many colors might be a bad translation, right?
It is, yeah.
It is more about the cut of the fabric than the dye, from what I understand.
Yeah, that is correct. The Hebrew phrase Ketonet Passim is better translated as a long-sleeved, ankle-length tunic.
Like a royal garment.
Very much so. You see, most shepherds wore sleeveless, knee-length tunics.
So they could actually move around.
Right, so they could run, fight off predators, work in the mud. Jacob gives Joseph a garment designed for leisure and management.
It is the outfit of an overseer.
Yes, but it was far more than a fashion statement or a sign of favoritism. Giving this specific garment was a legal and social declaration.
Oh, wow.
In the ancient Near East, this specific action transferred the firstborn status to Joseph.
Wait, really? Just by giving him the coat?
Just by the coat. It granted him the double inheritance and future authority over the entire family.
So the older brothers were looking at a huge economic and social threat.
A massive threat. They saw a younger sibling who was legally positioned to rule over them and take the lion's share of the family wealth.
So they see this coat coming from miles away. It is basically a walking billboard of their disinheritance.
That is a great way to put it.
And their solution is the pit. The Hebrew word is bor. Let us picture the trap they set here.
It is horrifying.
It is. I visualize being dropped into a massive slick-wall glass bottle buried in the earth.
Yeah, that is a good analogy.
It is an incredibly claustrophobic and terrifying space. You are shoved down a narrow opening, the space widens out around you, but there is absolutely no way to climb back up.
No escape at all.
You are sitting in the dark, looking up at a tiny circle of blazing daylight, completely trapped.
And the archaeological context makes the horror of that situation so much worse.
Break that down for us.
Well, these cisterns were bell-shaped reservoirs hewn directly into solid limestone.
Okay.
Their purpose was to catch and store winter rainwater so the livestock could survive the blistering dry seasons.
Right, because water's everything out there.
Yes. Because of their design, the necks were incredibly narrow, sometimes just wide enough to lower a single bucket.
Oh.
Then they opened up into large, bulbous caverns below. And to prevent the stored water from seeping out into the porous limestone, the ancient builders plastered the interior walls with a thick, lime-based mortar.
Making them completely slick.
Entirely slick. Even if Joseph could somehow reach the walls, he could never get a handhold. He could never get a foothold.
And the text includes this really chilling little detail, right? It says, the pit was empty. There was no water in it.
Yes.
If there is water, maybe he drowns quickly, or maybe he treads water until he's pulled out. But an empty cistern in the Judean desert, that's basically a torture chamber.
It is a sentence of slow, agonizing death by dehydration. He is trapped inside a limestone oven.
Yeah, the heat.
The temperature inside those dry cisterns during the day would be suffocating. He has zero chance of escape.
So the brothers are not just killing him. They are washing their hands of the physical act of bloodshed by letting the elements do the execution.
Which is so calculated. They drop him in the ground and then, astonishingly, they sit down to eat a meal.
That part always gets me. The complete lack of empathy is staggering.
It really is.
So, okay, let us unpack this. If a family is sitting down to eat lunch while their little brother is screaming from a hole in the ground 20 yards away, how do they get to that point?
It requires a serious shift in psychology.
Right. We need to look at the psychology of this mob. Verse 18 says they saw Joseph from afar and conspired to kill him before he even arrives.
Yes.
That phrase, from afar, means they had time. They had time to watch him approach, time to let the initial spike of adrenaline fade, time to maybe reconsider.
But they don't.
No. Instead, they use that time to finalize a murder plot.
Because hatred rarely erupts suddenly out of nowhere. It matures in secret. It ferments.
That is a scary thought.
The text uses the Hebrew word nakal to describe their plotting. This word implies crafty, deceitful, conspiring.
Nakal.
And what is really fascinating is that the verb is used in a reflexive form.
What does that mean in this context?
It means the brothers were mutually stirring each other up. It is a psychology of groupthink and mob violence.
Oh, I see.
One brother voices a grievance, the next amplifies it, the next suggests a violent solution, until the unthinkable becomes their shared justifiable objective.
They're just feeding on each other's bitterness.
Right. And contrast this calculated malice with Joseph's posture at the beginning of the chapter.
Right, when Jacob tells him to go.
When Jacob tells Joseph to go check on the brothers who hate him, Joseph's response is simple submission. He says, "Here I am."
He is the sent son.
Yes, acting in obedience, walking into a conspiracy that has been brewing for years.
I want to zero in on this specific insult they hurl at him when he is walking up. They call him the master of dreams.
Yes, a very specific insult.
They say to each other, "Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits. And we will see what will become of his dreams."
Right.
This feels like a very targeted attack. They do not say, "Let us see what becomes of his fancy coat," or "Let us see what becomes of his inheritance."
No, they target the dreams.
Why are they so obsessed with the dreams he had?
Because the dreams are the actual threat here. This shifts their motive from intense sibling rivalry to an outright insurrection against divine revelation.
Oh, wow. Insurrection against God's revelation.
Yes. The dreams Joseph had, the sheaves of wheat bowing down, the sun, moon, and stars bowing down, were not just the result of an overactive imagination.
They were prophetic.
They signaled a future exaltation decreed by God himself. And the brothers understood this implication perfectly well.
So by attempting to kill the dreamer,
They are attempting to murder the promise. They are acting under the delusion that if they eliminate the boy, they can eliminate the future God has revealed.
it is like trying to shoot the mailman to stop tomorrow from happening.
Yeah, that's exactly, well, that is spot on. It is pure delusion.
It really is.
It is the essence of total depravity. And Total depravity does not mean every person is as thoroughly evil as they could possibly be.
Right, that is a common misconception.
It means the pervasive corruption of human nature affects the mind, the will, and the affections. Reason becomes warped by sin.
And we see that warping so clearly here.
We do. These men are the sons of Jacob. They are the physical heirs to the covenant God made with Abraham and Isaac. They have been raised hearing the promises of God, yet their proximity to covenant blessings did not cleanse their hearts.
Outward religious privilege does not equal inward purity.
Precisely. They are looking God's revelation right in the face and saying, "We will crush it."
So the mob is whipped into this murderous frenzy, totally ready to strike down the revelation of God. How does Joseph survive the initial encounter?
Well, this is where the hierarchy of the family gets tested.
Right, and Reuben steps into the narrative. Reuben intervenes. He says, "Let us not take his life, shed no blood, throw him into this pit here in the wilderness, but do not lay a hand on him."
Yes.
On the surface, if I am reading this like a casual observer, Reuben looks like a hero here.
He does on the surface.
He is the firstborn. He is stepping up and stopping a straight-up execution in the middle of nowhere.
But we have to analyze Reuben's actions with far more scrutiny.
Okay, why is that?
While Reuben does prevent immediate bloodshed, his intervention is morally bankrupt.
Morally bankrupt.
Yes, he is the eldest. He has the patriarchal authority to command them to stop.
True.
But he lacks the transparent righteousness to openly rebuke his brother's evil. He does not say, "This is wicked, we will not touch him, I forbid it."
He doesn't take a real stand.
Right. He chooses an indirect, cowardly strategy. He suggests a cruel substitute that still leaves Joseph in a terrifying, deadly situation.
Wait, I need to push back on that a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
In a lawless society, dealing with 9 furious men who have a history of mass murder, isn't Reuben just being pragmatic?
That is one way to look at it, but
I mean, if he opposes them outright, doesn't he just end up dead in the pit right next to Joseph? Isn't a half measure better than full-blown murder?
it seems that way, yes.
Like if someone is about to be stabbed and you manage to talk the attackers into just locking them in a closet instead, you save their life. Why does the biblical text present Reuben's actions as a failure of integrity?
To answer that, we really have to look at the original audience receiving this text. The initial recipients were the Israelites wandering in the wilderness, being led by Moses.
Right.
The text intentionally unsettled moral complacency for them. Partial restraint is not full obedience.
Oh, I see.
The author wanted to show the Israelites that their patriarchs, the founders of their 12 tribes, were deeply flawed, compromised men.
It strips away their heroes.
Yes. This ensured the nation understood they existed by divine mercy, not by ancestral merit. They had absolutely nothing to boast about in their lineage.
That makes a lot of sense.
Reuben's compromise acts as a severe warning against softening evil without decisively opposing it.
So when we try to manage sin,
Or negotiate with it, instead of rejecting it outright, we are practicing moral cowardice.
wow,
And furthermore, Reuben has a hidden agenda here.
he does.
The text tells us he planned to come back later and rescue Joseph secretly to restore him to his father.
Oh, right.
But remember, Reuben had previously lost his father's favor by sleeping with Jacob's concubine, Bilhah.
Right, back in Genesis 35.
So he sees saving Joseph as a political play to win back his firstborn status. It is not about righteousness. It is about self-preservation and political maneuvering.
So even the good deed is laced with selfish ambition.
Completely.
That makes the scene where they finally grab Joseph so much darker.
It really sets the tone for the violence.
Let us look at the violent execution of this plot in verses 23 and 24. Joseph walks up, completely unaware of the trap.
Yes.
The verbs used in the Hebrew text are abrupt, forceful, and violent. They stripped Joseph of his robe,
Yeah.
and they took him and threw him into a pit.
It is a mob assault.
Yeah. Ripping that robe off his body is a symbolic attack on the Father's favor.
Absolutely.
It is the total humiliation of the righteous sufferer. They are literally stripping away the visual representation of his identity and his future before they throw him into the dark.
And this specific moment brings us face to face with the doctrine of providence.
Okay, unpack that.
God is sovereign over the events of history, but he is not the author of sin. This is a vital distinction to maintain.
Extremely vital.
The brothers are acting entirely freely on their own wicked desires. God is not coercing them to hate Joseph.
Right.
They are fully culpable, fully guilty for their malice, yet simultaneously their wicked actions are being governed by a sovereign God to achieve a specific redemptive outcome.
That is such a massive concept.
It is. And it refutes modern theological errors like open theism, which suggests God is just reacting to human choices in real time, hoping things work out.
Right, like God is up there sweating, wondering what the brothers are going to do.
Exactly. Well, precisely.
Yeah.
God is not playing a reactionary game of chess against the brothers. He designed the board.
I love that. He designed the board.
It also refutes the prosperity gospel, which claims that if you are favored by God, you will always be healthy, wealthy, and safe from harm.
Because Joseph was favored.
Joseph was in the center of God's will, acting in complete obedience to his father, and he ended up stripped naked in a dry, dark cistern. God governs the pit just as surely as he governs the palace.
I think anyone who has experienced unjust suffering really needs to hear that.
Oh, yeah.
When you feel like you have been thrown into a pit by the very people who are supposed to protect you, the immediate human assumption is that God has abandoned you.
It is our default setting.
You look at the slick limestone walls, you feel the heat, you hear the silence, and you think, I am entirely on my own. God's plan failed.
But it didn't fail.
Right. So how does the sheer emptiness of that pit point to the presence of God rather than his absence?
The breathtaking reality of this narrative is that the brothers' malice becomes the precise mechanism God uses to save the covenant family.
The mechanism itself.
Yes. Think about the mechanical sequence of events set in motion at the mouth of that pit.
Walk us through it.
If the brothers do not strip him and throw him in the ground, Judah does not see the Ishmaelite traders passing by.
Right.
If the traders do not pass by, Joseph is not pulled out and sold into slavery. If he is not sold to Egypt, he never ends up in Potiphar's house. If he is not falsely accused in Potiphar's house, he never goes to the royal prison.
But chain just keeps going.
It does. If he is not in the royal prison, he never interprets the dreams of the cupbearer and baker. If he does not do that, he is never called to interpret Pharaoh's dreams.
Right.
And if he never interprets Pharaoh's dreams, he is never elevated to prime minister to store the grain.
Wow.
And finally, if he does not store the grain, his father and his brothers starve to death in Canaan, and the lineage of the Messiah is wiped out.
So the rebellion does not just fail to stop the plan. The rebellion is the very fuel the plan uses to move forward.
That is beautifully stated.
The humiliation of the chosen servant does not cancel his divine calling. The pit is the literal starting line for the fulfillment of the dreams they were trying to kill.
That is the genius of divine providence. God uses the rebellion to accomplish the rescue.
It is just massive.
And this establishes a huge redemptive pattern in the biblical narrative. Joseph is not an isolated historical anomaly.
Right, he is setting a precedent.
His life establishes a rhythm of humiliation preceding exaltation. You go down into the dark, into the place of death, before you are raised up into the light to provide salvation.
Which brings us to the shadows cast by this story.
Yes.
We see this pattern repeated, but obviously it culminates in one specific person. We have to draw the lines between Joseph and Jesus without forcing allegories where they do not belong.
Right, you have to be careful there.
We're not saying the coat represents one specific theological concept and a limestone represents another, but Joseph functions as a historical shadow of the greater Son.
The thematic resonance is undeniable. Look at the parallels.
Let's lay them out.
Joseph is the beloved son of his father. He is sent on a mission from the Father to seek the welfare of his brethren. He arrives offering peace. He is entirely rejected by his own people. They plot against him. He is stripped of his garments by hostile hands. He is cast into a place of death.
The shadow of the Messiah is just cast all over the landscape of Dothan.
Everywhere you look.
But the scale of the descent is completely different.
Oh, infinitely different.
Think about the dry cistern in Dothan, and then think about the tomb in Jerusalem. Both are places of absolute darkness.
Yes.
Both are cut into solid rock. Both are intended to be the final, silent resting place of a rejected son. But there is a massive difference in magnitude between what Joseph experienced and what the Messiah experienced.
The magnitude is infinite. The pit in Dothan was a man-made instrument of malice.
Right.
It was a physical hole in the ground designed to induce physical starvation and thirst. The Messiah, however, entered the pit of God's judicial wrath against sin.
That is a heavy contrast.
Joseph suffered immense injustice at the hands of sinners. Christ suffered true, agonizing death, bearing the curse due to sinners in order to satisfy divine justice.
Wow.
Joseph's pit was empty of water. Christ's pit was filled to the brim with the wrath of a holy God against the rebellion of humanity.
That is wow.
But the parallel of the outcome is glorious. Just as Joseph was eventually lifted up from that physical pit to provide physical bread for his starving family.
The very people who threw him in.
Yes, the true beloved Son was lifted from the grave to provide the bread of life for his elect. He secures salvation for the very people who rebelled against him.
That is just incredible.
Okay.
So bringing all of this ancient history and theology down to the ground floor of our daily lives.
Application is key here.
This text forces us to confront the creeping, silent nature of envy. It starts so small, doesn't it?
It always does.
It starts with just looking at someone else's coat, someone else's promotion at work, someone else's seemingly perfect family dynamic, or their financial stability.
Right.
We see how comparing ourselves to others can silently poison our speech, distort our judgment, and, in this case, turn brothers into murderers.
This text calls for extreme vigilance, particularly within the visible church.
Yes, expand on that.
Being close to sacred things, growing up in a religious environment, does not guarantee inward grace.
Absolutely not.
You can sit in a pew every single Sunday, know the theology cold, sing the hymns with perfect pitch, and still harbor the kind of secret resentment that destroys families and fractures churches.
That is a harsh reality.
The proper response to Genesis 37 is not to treat it as a moral fable where you just try harder to be nice to your siblings.
Right. It's not a self-help story.
No. The proper response is to recognize our own capacity for malice, repent of our envy, and rest entirely in the sovereign Savior. We find our hope in the fact that God governs the darkest circumstances, the worst failures of our families, and the absolute worst malice of others to accomplish his redemptive good.
I think that is the perfect place to land. I want to leave you with a concept to chew on as you go about the rest of your day.
Yeah, think about this.
You might look at the hostile forces in your life right now, the treacherous people, the unfair circumstances, the places where you feel completely trapped and stripped of your dignity.
It is easy to despair in those moments.
It is. You might view those things as massive obstacles blocking your future. But consider the pit in Dothan. What if the very people attempting to cast you down are the precise instruments God has ordained to lift you up?